Hey, before we dive deeper into this section, let's answer the question of what makes an animation actually feel right. Let's take a look at this family drawer animation. Does it feel good? Obviously not. How about this one? This one feels better, right? Well, the second one actually uses an easing type that works better with this type of animation, while the first one has a linear timing function which feels robotic and unnatural, as almost nothing in the world around us moves at a constant speed. So we can say that an animation feels right when it feels natural. The UI is then predictable and more delightful to use. Apple understands this. When you look at the dynamic island, for example, it feels like a living organism. The whole iOS UI feels very alive as well. This sort of subtle motion makes things easier to understand. It's a big reason why mobile apps usually feel better than web apps, where things often change instantly, which makes the whole experience feel artificial. In order for an animation to feel right, it also has to have a meaning. It should link actions to consequences in a logical and understandable way. Here we have a few cards that we will build together in the frame of motion part of the course. If we click on one of them, a more detailed view will be opened. Not only do we get something that arguably looks pretty nice, but there is also a clear relationship between those two states. Or this menu animation that I implemented at Vercel. We are animating the width and translating the elements out and into the view to indicate that we change the content of the menu. The animations are also direction aware. That means that if we hover on an element on the right, the new items will come from the same direction and old items will disappear to the left. There is also this one where I animated the theme transition, which is on the brink of being too much. It's not necessary at all, but it looks cool. Though not everyone wants to wait 2 seconds for the theme to change. Animations can make your product more pleasant to use, but they can very quickly become overwhelming. We will talk about it later in the course. Another important ingredient that makes an animation feel right is taste. As Benji Taylor, the founder of Family, once said, taste is maybe the biggest deciding factor in whether a product ends up feeling good or not, regardless of how much skill is involved. I strongly believe that taste is something that you can practice and get better at, and we will talk about how you can improve at it. Now, if this was about animations and interactions on touchscreens, this would have been much easier, because you can borrow many gestures from the physical world, like swiping a book, which on iOS is used to navigate between pages, but on the web we have this additional layer of abstraction. We rely on a mouse and keyboard to navigate, which makes creating natural, fluid and intuitive interfaces more difficult. On top of that, we are more limited when it comes to animations. It's much easier to create impressive and delightful animations and interactions with SwiftUI than it is when we are doing it on the web. We can still do a pretty good job though, like using the right easing or even spring animations. Here, we move an object from A to B with an ease-in type of easing that starts slow and speeds up, but that's not really how an object would behave in the real world. A car needs to accelerate before it reaches its top speed, and then it needs to decelerate before it stops. So in this case, we can use an ease-in-out curve, which has a similar acceleration and deceleration to a car. Feels better, right? This is just one part though. Once we get all of these elements right, and that's the goal of this section, we can create animations that are elegant and feel natural and intuitive, even on the web.